What's up, Samurai? We are back again with some more Genshin Impact. I know it's been a while, but honestly, it's been a while since we had anything to report. But now that we have the official showcase of both Dehya and Mika, it means that we can end up having videos focusing on those characters. So today we're going to be talking about Dehya, or Dehya, as they ended up weirdly saying her name during the live stream, even though in-game they always called her Dehya. I don't know which is the proper pronunciation, but in either case, for those of you that just want the information and get out, here's going to end up being her Ascension card. You can end up gathering all of Dehya's materials right now. I actually have all of the materials ready to go if I'm fortunate enough to be able to pull her. Of course, I am free to play completely now, and I don't think I'm going to have enough Freemos to end up getting her. But keep in mind that not only is Dehya going to end up coming around, in version 3.6, Dehya is also going to end up being a part of the permanent banner. So she's actually going to be thrown into the normal banner in the game, which obviously is going to be very, very poor odds of getting her out of here. It's not like you can choose to get her. But I'm just saying, so it's always going to be a thing. They're also going to be giving us roughly 23 fates, so we can end up pulling on the limited time banner. Can you stop doing this game and actually just open the menu that I want you to open? So essentially for the Archon quests, they're going to end up giving us retrofitted intertwined fates, and we will end up getting roughly around like 23 or something like that. But I want you all to keep in mind that while we have the Dehya banner coming around, we have a rerun of Cyno's banner, which I'd recommend do not go for Cyno. He's a terrible character. I have him almost completely maxed out. He's one of my strongest builds on a character, and yet Raiden just mops the floor with him. But then afterwards, there's going to end up being an Ayaka rerun. And then a Shenhe rerun. So I think most people are probably just going to end up waiting for Ayaka because she is still one of the strongest characters in the entire game. Dehya, as far as I've heard from people, is not looking too good in terms of the meta. But anyways, you can still end up gathering all of her materials and getting everything ready. And I'm still going to pull for her banner to hopefully get her. You won't be able to get Mika on Dehya's banner because he's going to be a part of the second wave of banners, which is Ayaka and Shenhe. So anyways, let's move on to her elemental skill, which is going to be Molten Inferno. So this art of Dehya's own invention changes its method of use depending on the combat situation. So Indomitable Flame. This skill will be unleashed should there be no Fiery Sanctum field created by Dehya herself present at the time, which deals area of effect pyro damage and creates a field of the Fiery Sanctum. So Ranging Flame. So this skill will be unleashed if there is a Fiery Sanctum field created by Dehya. Dehya will perform a leaping attack, dealing area of effect pyro damage before recreating a Fiery Sanctum field in her new position. A Fiery Sanctum field created this way will inherit the remaining duration of the previous field. So Ranging Flame can also can be used only once throughout a single Fiery Sanctum field's duration. So basically, you'll use her E once, it puts down a Fiery Sanctum, and then you could use her E again while the Fiery Sanctum is there to have her do a more offensive attack, but it's not going to reset the Fiery Sanctum. And the Fiery Sanctum, what it does is when an opponent within a Fiery Sanctum field takes damage, the field will unleash a coordinated attack, dealing area of effect pyro damage to them based on Dehya's attack and max HP. This effect can be triggered once every 2.5 seconds. Active characters within this field have their resistance to interruption increased, and when such characters take damage, a portion of that damage will be mitigated and flow into Redmane's blood. Dehya will then take this damage over 10 seconds. When the mitigated damage stored by Redmane's blood reaches or goes over a certain percentage of Dehya's max HP, she will stop mitigating damage in this way. So basically, if you have one of those fields down on the ground and you start using other characters to fight, not only will the field periodically tag enemies with Pyro, which is fantastic as a support DPS, because it means that you don't have to constantly swap to her in order to end up tagging enemies with Pyro, but any characters that end up taking damage in that field, Dehya will essentially like tank some of that damage for you, even though she's not like your active character, which is interesting and also kind of scary, because if you don't have a healer in the team, obviously she's just going to slowly die, or if you don't have a shield in the team, or more specifically, I'm just thinking in terms of co-op, that's pretty deadly because you're going to have somebody on your team healing, because otherwise Dehya is just going to be tanking all of the damage. And I mean, we know how powerful these endgame enemies are. So only one Fiery Sanctum created by Dehya herself can exist at one time, which makes me automatically assume that Constellations will end up increasing that. So anyways, then there's going to end up being her ultimate ability, which is Leonine Bite, which is like some lion. I think it's actually called Lion's Bite or something. That's what they ended up mentioning during the live stream. But anyways, so this unleashes her burning anger and casts her blade aside. Dehya enters the blazing lioness state. There's the lioness state. And increases her resistance to interruption. In this state, Dehya will automatically and continuously unleash the Flame Mane's fists, dealing pyro damage based on her attack and max HP. And when its duration ends, she will unleash an incineration drive, basically incineration. Yeah, I'm saying that incorrectly, but basically it does area of effect pyro damage based on her max attack and HP. Once again, she basically just punches the hell out of the enemies, which is really, really badass. If a Fiery Sanctum field created by Dehya's elemental skill exists when this ability is unleashed, Dehya will retrieve it and then create another field once the Blazing Lioness duration expires. This field will take on the retrieved field's duration at the moment of its retrieval. So basically, again, you know, if you're not using her ult, it would just be use her E to put down a field, use her E again to do another attack, and then the field would disintegrate. And otherwise, alternatively, you have a field on the ground, you use her ult, and then you could end up using the field, which would end up, you know, taking more damage, blah, 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 whatever. In this state, Dehya will be unable to cast her elemental skill or perform normal charged and plunging attacks. Normal attack, Sandstorm Assault, and elemental skill Molten Inferno will be replaced by Roaring Barrage. So Roaring Barrage, unleashing Roaring Barrage within 0.4 seconds after each Flame Mane's Fist strike will increase the attack speed of the next Flame Mane Fist strike. So essentially you're just going to be like tapping your main attack while also tapping like your other buttons to hopefully end up increasing your attack speed over and over and over again until the ult ends up running out. Again, very, very badass, even if apparently the numbers aren't super duper good. Anyways, let's move on to her passive skills. So this is a really weird one, but I kind of really like it. So she's got the Sunlit Way, which increases movement speed of your own party members by 10% during the day. So 6 to 18 for the hours. So funny enough, I don't know if we've ever had an ARA character that increased a movement speed during a specific time other than Rosaria. I could be mistaken on that, but I think Rosaria was the only character that had the same thing for nighttime. And I just think that's cool because I've already got some pretty decent movement speed characters, not to mention, you know, just having two animal characters, but also the Catalyst that I have on Traveler also has movement speed. So I'd be curious to see if I threw Dehya in my party, how much faster would I end up being during the day? So anyways, then there's also going to be Unstinting Sucker, which is within 6 seconds after Dehya retrieves the Fiery Sanctum field through her Molten Inferno Ranging Flame, her ultimate ability. She will take 60% less damage when retrieving damage from the Redmane's blood. So this effect can only be triggered once every 2 seconds, which essentially makes it so that that is how you would be able to tank out the damage while not dying immediately. Additionally, within 9 seconds after Dehya unleashes Molten Inferno Indomitable Flame, she will grant all party members the Golden Forged Form state. This state will further increase a character's resistance to interruption when they are within the Fiery Sanctum. Gold Forged Form can be activated once every 18 seconds. So not very often, but at least once every battle, right? And then Stalwart and True. So when her HP is less than 40%, Dehya will recover 20% of her max HP and will restore 6% of her max HP every 2 seconds for the next 10 seconds. This effect can be triggered once every 20 seconds. So she kind of has a little bit of her own little heal. Even if I wouldn't necessarily say it's a heal, it's more so just a passive, like, oh, it kind of pulls you a little bit out of damage, but not a lot if you're taking a lot of damage in. Moving on to her constellations. First, her C1. Dehya's max HP is increased by 20%. And she deals bonus damage based on her max HP when using the following attacks. Her Molten Inferno damage will be increased by 3.6% of her max HP, and her ultimate will end up increasing by 6% of her max HP. And then her C2, when Dehya uses Molten Inferno, Raging Flame, the duration of the recreated Sanctum field is increased by 4 seconds. Additionally, when a Fiery Sanctum exists on the field, damage dealt by its next coordinated attack will be increased by 50% when the active characters within the field are attacked. So that would probably be the ideal constellation to go for if you have the Freemo gems to do it, just because that C2 kind of just brings it all together, right? Like, the thing that I'm going to go on a little rant here, but the thing that I find so frustrating about a lot of Genshin's characters is you can totally tell that Constellations, rather than changing the gameplay of the character, more so it feels like this is something that already should be natively attached to the character, but instead they start stripping away parts of a character so that they can throw it into the Constellations, right? So anyways, her C3 actually makes it so that her ult gains 3 extra levels. Her C4 is when Flame Main's Fist and Incineration Drive attacks unleashed during her ultimate ability hit opponents, they will restore 1.5 energy for Dehya and 2.5% of her max HP. This effect can be triggered every 0.2 seconds. So essentially, that's where she becomes a bit of a self-healer, which would be pretty cracked, honestly. Her C5 makes it so that her E ability gains 3 levels, and then her C6. So it's kind of a lengthy one in its explanation here, but the crit rate of the ultimate is increased by 10%. Additionally, after Flame Main's Fist attack hits an opponent and deals crit hits during a single ultimate, it will cause the crit damage of the ultimate to increase by 15% for the rest of the ultimate's duration, and extend that duration by 0.5 seconds. This effect can be triggered every 0.2 seconds, and the duration can be extended for a maximum of 2 seconds, and crit damage can be increased by a maximum of 60% this way. So again, like I said, that is basically going to end up making her more functional, but in my opinion, doesn't necessarily make her more fun. I find that a lot of the C6 characters lately are just really, really lame. It's usually just like, oh, increases damage across the board. Whereas, some of the early bird characters like Zhongli or Xiao and stuff like that, it almost completely changes the style of play where you get to like just stay in your ult all the time or whatever. But anyways, now I'm rambling. Either way, that is essentially going to do it for all of her abilities. So let me just talk very briefly about how I would end up building her. Beggars can't be choosers. I would probably just end up using my Wolf Gravestone just because I already have it. Otherwise, energy recharge could be nice depending on her ult cooldown. Serpentine's Spine is probably just going to be your best bet, honestly speaking, or the fish one. I don't know. I mean, beggars can't be choosers, and frankly speaking, there are a lot of different options out there, but obviously her best weapon in slot is going to end up being her new 5-star weapon. Now, as far as the artifacts are concerned, I mean, basically, I would just be building her the same way you would build Hu Tao, because of the fact that she scales off of HP. Actually, it looks like I've got all my sets on this guy instead. I moved everything off of Hu Tao in the hopes that I end up actually getting Dehya. But essentially, the primary stats you're going to be focusing on, as always, is going to be attack, crit rate, crit damage, with HP being the extra stat that is ideal, because you don't necessarily want to end up getting all of the other garbage stats like defense and stuff like that. And then otherwise, for her Sands, I would recommend HP. Unfortunately, this one has defense, but beggars can't be choosers because look at the crit damage on it. And then obviously for the goblet, it's going to be pyro damage. And then for the hat, depending on what you're using, you would end up having a crit damage hat or a crit rate hat. Now, the talent priority is going to be a bit of a weird one because Dehya essentially is a support DPS based on the way that her abilities end up functioning. So personally, I would prioritize her E ability and then maybe her ult, because I don't see why you would end up using her base attack very much. So that should be the lowest priority out of the stats, that the talents that you would end up leveling, just because I feel like she's one of those characters that you would pop out to throw down her E to boost everybody else, and then you would pop her out only again once you end up having her ultimate ability, right? That's just how I would end up playing her. I mean, obviously, if I end up even getting her in the first place, I'll have to try and figure out some way to squeeze her into my party. But generally speaking, yeah, she's not greedy, which is the thing that I kind of like about her. I mean, she's got a bit of a greedy ult. I honestly miss the days of having a character just do a burst of damage with their ultimate ability and then just be done with it, instead of all these characters being like Razor, where you gotta pull them out for their entirety of their ult, and their damage is still not even comparable to Raiden. But whatever. Anyways, that's going to do it from me, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you ended up enjoying this video and found it helpful. Smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want to support the channel, and have a wonderful day.